Welcome to the 5 o'clock show. It's time for Common Sense. Now, it's Katz and Cosby with John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby, standing for truth, justice, and the American way, bringing common sense to the world. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby.
And down the stretch they come!
What was that?
That, I guess, is down the
stretch.
stretch.
No clue.
That
What did the control room do this time?
I'm not sure, but that is the beginning,
It was
I
supposed
guess,
to
of
come
a
out.
race.
We're coming down to the finish.
Down to the wire.
Down to the wire,
And
down to the finish.
By the way, I have some new numbers in. We just found out 70 million people have done early voting already across America. That's amazing, John. That's huge.
In the studio with us, we have Judge Weinberg, we have Ed Cox, the GOP chairman, and we have Governor Patterson.
By the way, John, I think that was the voice of Fred Capicello, who was a famous racing announcer.
Look at you.
Good catch.
Do you know his birthday by chance?
April 5th. April 5th.
What time, April 5th?
Yeah, what time?
About 2:30.
But early
way,
voting
guys,
is big.
I mean, right now, the truth is, I don't know what's going to happen. Ed Cox, any opinions?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a distinct win for President Trump.
Governor Patterson?
It's so close, it's hard for me to call. Maybe Monday I'll know.
Oh!
Which Monday?
By the way,
Governor?
Tuesday.
November
Tuesday,
11th.
We're doing live from 6 o'clock in the evening all the way overnight. And we're going to have a big party in the studio. And,
we're going to have the best coverage anywhere with the best who's who, with lots of these wonderful guys here in the studio with us. And Governor Pataki is going to be joining us. All of our great hosts. It's going to be the best coverage anywhere, John.
We're going to have more opinions than Carter has Liverpool.
Oh, my goodness. And wow, that's all. And by the way, also, let's talk about Liz Cheney, because this is wild what's happening.
We forgot to mention Judge Weinberg.
Yeah, we have to. What are you
You
predicting?
forgot him already?
Never. I could never forget a man of this caliber.
I feel
All right,
sorry for them.
You're dealing with my wife again?
Well, you were taking a while to get to the point, but what do you think?
Well,
Who do you wait?
Breaking news. What happened to
Breaking news, WABC.
Okay, they just made an announcement.
Yes, this is interesting. A judge has now just set April 21st, 2025 as the date for New York City Mayor Eric Adams' historic corruption trial.
The translation of that is, in my opinion, and I'll ask the lawyers across the desk from us, is that he's going to serve out his full term. Because April 21st, by the time they try him, by the time they have sentencing, or if there's sentencing, it's going to be the new term. And Cox?
Look, there's going to be an appeal, too, if he's convicted. It's certainly an appeal. I think at least on the bribery charge, he would win.
Yeah. Governor?
Well, with President Trump, he was tried. They reached a conviction, but he was still able to, operate and run for president. I don't see why Mayor Adams, if he decided to run, couldn't continue to run after that time.
Well, the governor, the two issues. One, does he stay in office? Unless he's removed by the governor, he stays in office pending the appeals.
I don't think the governor's going to remove him.
Right.
And the second issue is, if he is convicted, what that does for his reelection campaign. Does he continue running for reelection?
Ask me next year.
Yeah.
Bottom line, Eric Adams is not going anywhere. He's going to serve out his...
we agree with that.
We agree with that. Now let's talk about Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney, this is the big story. First, it started with President Trump talking with Tucker Carlson, and he said, listen, Liz Cheney, he said, is a war hawk. And he said, she shouldn't be in such a rush to send people, men and women, to battle, to put these young, especially men, on the front lines who lose their lives, and that she needs to think twice. And what would she do if suddenly she was thrust into battle herself?
And somebody was pointing a gun at her.
Yes.
And so immediately they run after her and they accuse him of threatening her. Isn't that the most ridiculous thing in the world? And the Daily News makes a big stink about this.
War is very, very messy. You see the guy next to you, all of a sudden he's a mess. He's dead. I mean, this is rough stuff.
Well, I said it the other day, guys. Liz Cheney and her father ran Halliburton and made $1 zillion. and he prefers to have war and have missiles, etc., etc. And I think he thinks Kamala is easier to sell than President Trump.
And you know what? That was the point that Trump was making in terms of that it's a perpetual war, this war machine, to your point, John.
I know Dick Cheney is a nice guy, but he's in it for the business.
The people who do not want war are the people who have to go to war are the soldiers and the generals. They know you only go to war when you got a purpose and you can finish it.
And by the way, that was what President Trump said. He said it is the hardest thing as commander in chief, which of course he was, to pick up the phone and to say, listen, I'm so sorry about your loss, Mom. And he said, we have to think about it. And so now Kamala Harris is spinning it. She's going after him, saying he's reckless. It's terrible.
Well, it's terrible. It shows a total bias of the media.
Proposition 1, the decision on Tuesday, Proposition 1 in New York State, judge, governor.
It has to be stopped. The governor, Chairman Cox and I all agree.
What's
it has
in
to
it?
Be stopped. It will be an open door, a Trojan horse for every.
What's in it?
Votes for illegal migrants. For one, your daughters.
Votes for them. I'm voting for them.
They would vote as if they were citizens because they have equal rights.
That's right.
So in other words, Proposition 1 says
transgenders in girls' sports.
Okay.
Right.
It's a slippery slope. It allows those things.
And,
exactly right.
Chairman Cox?
And it would get defined by the courts. That's the problem.
And the problem with the courts is...
In other words, they want to have men playing in women's sports.
Exactly. Well put.
Governor Patterson?
Well, it gives some constitutional protection for people who aren't citizens and people who are in the country for other reasons that really, if you just went through the regular process.
Let's take a vote. Rita, how would you vote? Proposition 1. I voted already.
I have not, but I will. And I don't tell people who
Judge,
I vote for president. Hang on. No, and no.
No,
How's that?
no.
How's that?
Judge, no.
Absolute no.
No.
Ed Cox,
Absolute
Patterson.
No.
I'll vote the way Rita did.
Smart man.
You vote
Smart
later?
man. I'm voting early voting. I'm going to be added.
Now, what's the number one item? New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, everybody that they're worried about when voting for president and voting for the Congress. I'm going to tell you my feeling. Is the migrant situation going to change? Are they still going to be bringing in murderers and criminals? I mean, I believe in immigration. I want immigration. But
legal
don't bring
immigration.
No, I don't care. Legal,
Of course you care about legal.
I don't want criminals.
I would put up there with illegal immigration. I'd put up the cost of gasoline, the cost of food.
Yes.
That is
those
what is
issues.
driving a lot of people to vote.
If you voted for Trump, he's promising you $2 a gallon for gasoline in the future. If you vote for Kamala, who knows what the price is?
And he's also if you vote for Trump, he's also saying, I'm going to make sure those who are convicted of crimes in this country who have crossed the border illegally, guess what? They're going to be booted out. And I think any common sense American would say that makes sense.
Rita, bring in our friend Karl Rove, even though he doesn't agree with us in everything.
Well, we love Karl Rove.
I love him anyway.
So let's go to the former senior advisor for George W. Bush, Karl Rove. Karl, don't you agree, as we're just talking, the big issues are obviously immigration, the border, and also cost, food, and gas. Your thoughts?
I'd add to that the overall state of the economy, which the voters continually say is number one. And you've got them 1, 2, and 3 down there, distant 4, 5, and 6, depending on in what order, depending on what pollster asks them, is abortion, health care, and democracy. But yeah, number 1, 2, and 3 are economy, inflation, and border, and everything else pales by significance.
Where do you think this race is going, Karl Rove? It's been fascinating. You know the polls, your famous whiteboard, my friend. And you look at some of the latest numbers. I've also been looking at Nate Silver, all the different ones. It seems like the trajectory seems to be obviously heading to Trump, and especially in those 7 key swing states. Your thoughts on sort of where the race is at with your great expertise?
Yeah, well, look, I keep track of Real Clear Politics, 538, and Silver Bulletin. And every morning I get up, and now I have to do it again a second time in the afternoon because Nate Silver doesn't update his number until midday. But I go in and I mark down who has, who's winning and by what number, and is their movement up or down. And what it gets me is how remarkably stable it is and how close it is. Like yesterday, I think there were 4 instances. Remember, what we're talking about here is 7 states times 3 averages, so you got 21 numbers. Each one of those numbers represents the aggregate average of between 8 to 10, 12 polls, maybe with some formulaic overlays by, the author of the, 538 or Nate Silver. Real Clear Politics just averages them all together. The others may say, we're going to adjust for how many are in the sample and how good the pollster tends to be. What is his bias, Republican or Democrat? But we are talking about 21 numbers, each of which represents 8 to 12 polls. And so the sample size may be something like 8,000 to 13,000. So it's big numbers. And what gets me is yesterday there were 3 instances in which somebody had a lead, in this case Trump, by 2% or more. One average in Georgia and 2 in Arizona. There were like 4 where the lead was between 1 and 1.9%, and it tended to be like 1%, 1.2, 1.4, 1.5, that kind of thing. The rest of them, the vast majority of the 21, were less than a point. So, look, I think it's a coin toss, and I think how each one of them handles themselves in the final days here as we come to the close and the quality of each side's ground game are going to determine the outcome of the election.
I agree with you. I think it's tight, but I do think there's a lot of people who will tell the pollsters that they're going to vote. They're not which way they're going to vote, but they don't want to tell people they're going to vote for Trump.
Yeah, well, there are about 5% in all these polls on average that say I'm undecided. And you may be right. In 2016, it was socially unacceptable to say you're for Donald Trump. I don't think that's the case any longer.
It's worse.
No, I think it's better. I mean, people wear red hats and Trump shirts and fly Trump flags. And I mean, there's no longer – I'm not meeting any shy Trump voters, as I travel. But I do think there's a thing, we call it in polling business non-responsive bias, where people don't answer. The pollsters are trying to deal with any potential of a shy Trump voter by asking people in the survey, who did you vote for 4 years ago? And then they adjust the sample so it's weighted so it actually reflects the percentage of the sample that Donald Trump got in that particular state. Now, the question there is somebody who says I voted for Donald Trump the same as somebody who actually voted for Donald Trump? And among the nerdnicks in the polling business, there's a robust discussion about where that comes out. But they are trying to do a better job. Remember, in 2016 and 2020, they underestimated Trump's vote. And in 2022, the pollsters overestimated the so-called, giant red wave. So the way that they're trying to deal with it is by asking for a recalled vote.
But,
Ed Cox?
Carl, someone you know well, Ken Kachigan, he had a piece where he said, look, Harris doesn't have the stature of any of your previous Democratic candidates, going back to FDR, LBJ, JFK, even the losers like Humphrey or Stevenson. She hasn't gone through the fire of a tough race where she's looking for votes, and she doesn't have a closing argument except that he's a fascist. How do you respond to that?
First of all, I thought it was a great piece by Ken, and I think he's put his finger on it. I wrote in my column yesterday, there are 3 groups of people who are up for grabs. There are the low information voters who really don't pay much attention to politics until right at the end. I loved it. I think it was in the Washington Post. They were interviewing people in Pennsylvania, and the woman said, well, I'm going to make up my mind when I'm driving to the polls. And there are people like that in our country. So that's part of it. The second group are people who say, you know what, I like what Donald Trump did in office, but I don't like the man. And they are up for grabs because they're trying to figure out, looking at both candidates and the closing messages, should they overcome their disdain for his personality and vote for him because things they admit were better when he was president? The third group are people who are looking at her. They'll say, I'll never vote for Trump. But they're looking at her and saying, does she have what it takes to be president? Now, they will probably not vote for him, but the question is, will they vote at all for her? And that's why, it's so important at the end. Those people are, if you're telling the pollster, I'm registered to vote and I'm likely to vote, and you're undecided, you got to fall into one of those three groups. And each one of them requires a different message than the two candidates have been offering up till now. You're not going to get, if you're Donald Trump, get those people to vote for you by giving the same speech you were given 4 months ago at a rally in Georgia. And if you're her, you're not going to get those people if you give the answers like you gave on The View. Her biggest problem is that View interview gave us an insight into her when she said, I can't think of anything that I would have disagreed with.
That's a problem for her.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
My belief, and I've said it many, many times before, that if you vote for Trump, you're going to have lower gas prices. Go back to $2 a gallon. If you vote for Harris, you might have $4 or $5 a gallon, but it's not going to be $2. And the price of food goes the same way as the price of diesel fuel and gasoline. It's going to, if you vote for her, it's going to stay up. I don't understand why the Suez Canal and the Red Sea is still closed, and they're not going to open it, and the Democratic Party's not going to open it. Why? I don't know why. They don't want to. They didn't want to challenge. I mean, it's supposed to be international. It's supposed to be oil will go down $10 a barrel if they opened up the Suez Canal.
Yeah, maybe so. But I'll tell you this: we've got you on the spot here, so I get to ask you questions.
Oh, go please.
Yeah, go ahead, Carl. All right, go ahead, Carl, real quick.
One of the things that is absolutely ludicrous to me is her economic plan to fight inflation starts with not cutting government spending and putting our fiscal house in order, but by going after one of the industries in America that I think is one of the low-margin businesses, your business, groceries. I mean, am I wrong?
She can check my certified statement anytime. All the inner city stores, all the ones in San Francisco, the ones in Los Angeles, the ones in Chicago, Atlanta, the inner city stores are losing money. The drug stores are losing money. The food stores are losing money. And guess what? You're not going to have any inner city stores if it keeps going like this.
Yeah, and she's and you know, I guess it polls well, but I'm going to stop price gouging. That We've seen the record of countries in the world that have said, yeah, we're going to have the government in charge of setting prices.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Carl,
we love you. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl, so much.
All the best.
Thank you very much. And now, John, I understand calling in, you have North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum and also Trump surrogate. He's on the road.
Well, calling in right now is Governor Doug Burgum from the great state of North Dakota. And I understand you're heading to Pennsylvania because that's a key state. Governor, fill us in. Where the heck do you think we are?
Well, John, always great to be with you. Great to see you at that fabulous event at Madison Square Garden last weekend. But yes, on my way to Pennsylvania tonight. Be there this weekend, and then also hitting Wisconsin and Michigan. So hitting all three of those swing states between now and midnight on Monday night. But I was just in those states recently, heading back again, my third or fourth trip for some of those locations. And I tell you, the momentum, whether it's the auto workers in Michigan, energy workers in Philadelphia, or college kids on campuses, I've never seen so much momentum for President Trump. This is different than 2016, different than 2020, and I'm feeling very good about where the momentum is headed right now for President Trump.
And, I don't understand the polls being at 50-50 because nothing's going to change and people are not happy. I mean, they used to pay $2 a gallon for under President Trump, and then it went as high as $5 a gallon. And right now they have to decide, do we want to pay $2 a gallon going forward, or do we want to pay $5 a gallon going forward? And the price of food is up. I mean, what are these people thinking?
Well, you're right, John. All of the you can line up all of these liberal, Nobel Prize winning economists, all the pundits on all the mainstream media, and they could all, talk about how close the race this is, and then you go out and talk to real Americans. 70% of Americans think that America's on the wrong track, and they, of course, accurately believe that Kamala was part of the reason we are on the wrong track, because she was the last person in the room. For Afghanistan, that horrible decision. She's been involved in let's ban fracking. 80% of America's energy now, oil and gas, comes from horizontal drilling and fracking. Fracking is not a bad thing. It's a new technology that allowed this country to go from being an energy importer to an energy exporter. It saved America, and she's against 80% of that. If she banned fracking in places like Pennsylvania, we would be importing oil again from our adversaries. And so when you're on these college campuses, there's 400 kids that are there, and I say, would you rather graduate into a Kamala economy or a Trump economy, and 400 college kids all yelling Trump, Trump, Trump? I mean, these folks that want to start their careers, go start a business, the high interest rates, the open borders, the economic policies, they know that Harris has been, helping to kill the American dream, and they want President Trump.
And I just don't understand, because she hasn't said she's going to change anything. And the biggest problem is the border is leaking. We're having tens of thousands of people, to a million of people coming through, and a lot of them are criminals. A lot of them are murderers. Yes. I mean, how can you put these murderers into Pennsylvania or put them into New York? I mean, it's crazy.
Well, it is, and it makes no sense whatsoever. And I think, again, the American people understand that whether it's the economy, the border, national security, President Trump, and for the people that are older than these college kids, they remember what it was like under President Trump. They remember that their real income was higher. They remember that interest rates were lower. They remember that, the food on their table, the gas in the car, and the clothes on their back were all cheaper. They remember that. And I believe that's where they're going to vote on Election Day. Very encouraged by the early voting. If any of your listeners out there haven't yet voted, now's the time to do it, because I think there's going to be a big turnout on Tuesday. And, get out there early. And it's great to see the support for President Trump that's coming through the early voting.
And what I say is, I'm an immigrant. I am pro-immigration. But you can't let criminals in. You can't let murderers in. And enough is enough. And I think that's the bottom line. And I don't think anything's going to change if Kamala Harris is elected.
Well, I agree with you on that. I don't think anything's going to change. She got thrown so many softballs. What you do differently? And when the answer is, I can't think of one thing, I think the election was over at that moment. And I think it was one of her few honest answers. So it is I'm excited for Tuesday. It's great to see so many people out supporting President Trump and across such a broad group. I mean, Democrats, Independents, Republicans, everybody you can imagine, anybody who has worked for a living and is in retirement, anybody who's working now, anybody that wants to work, they're for President Trump. His policies lift up everybody. They're not targeted at one demographic. His policies lift up everybody. Lower interest rates, lower prices, more jobs, lower energy prices. That helps everybody. And people are figuring that out. And I think Tuesday is going to be a fun night for President Trump. And with him, I hope he pulls along the Senate and the House. Harris and Biden have made such a mess. President Trump can fix it.
Thank you for helping save America, and that's what we want to do. We want common sense to prevail. Thank you so much, Governor.
Absolutely.
And stay safe in Pennsylvania, and convince the people that common sense has to prevail.
Will do. Thank you.
One smart guy, that Governor Burgum. And we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with Larry Kudlow. Which way is the economy going? I'm going to ask Larry, which way does it go if Trump becomes president? Which way does it go if Harris becomes president?
I'll save you the trouble, John.
Okay. We're going to hear you too, Governor. Let's take the break.
New Life Center NYC is a leading integrative med spa on beautiful Madison Avenue in the heart of New York City. New Life Center has been championing ageless living for over 25 years. Their expert team will design a personalized health and wellness program just for you, using cutting-edge technologies and specialized supplements. Experience the future
of medicine at New Life Center. Call 917-723-8933 now to book your appointment. That's 917-723-8933. Call now to discover ageless living at New Life Center NYC.
Common Sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
Well, we are back. And with us on the phone is one of the country's leading economists. I would say the number one economist is Larry Kudlow. And Larry, 4 days away from the election, what the heck is going to happen?
You know, I was very interested in your conversation with Karl Rove, who was a friend. And I think, John, that you hit the nail on the head. You know, the last couple of days, and you've seen this in recent days, Kamala's trying to smear Trump. It's trash talk, all these crazy names, calling him a fascist and Hitler and all the rest of it. It's not going to work. And I think if Mr. Trump stays where he's been on message, on the economy, I mean, $2 gasoline is exactly right. He's going to reopen the spigots and permitting reforms and leasing and LNG, and that will get these oil prices back down. That, in turn, will get the inflation rate permanently. Prices can actually fall, and that'll help get interest rates down the right way. Plus, he wants to cut taxes, and plus, he wants to take the regulatory chains off of business, especially small business. The whole Elon Musk stuff, where they want the Department of Government Efficiency, that's going to work. I mean, I know I'm involved in the transition. I'm talking to Howard Lutnick and many other people. Trump should stay on this economic message and on the border message. I think it's absolutely crucial. Don't take the bait. Don't get into trash talking. And he's going to pick up a tremendous coalition. You know, they did a poll. I know there's 1 million polls, but in Pennsylvania, they polled Trump with men, okay, in early October, he was plus 11. In the last day or two or three when the poll was taken, he's plus 20, okay? And that is because of the stuff he's doing. That's the McDonald's, that's the sitting in the garbage truck, going to the barbershops, and talking about how he'll reform the economy, close the border, and how much he loves America. These are powerful, powerful messages, and I think he's going to stay right there. The only other thing I want to say, John, the last big economic number came out today, the jobs number, and it was a dismal report. It's the worst report in 3 years. Last 2 months were revised lower. We lost 100,000 private sector jobs, 100,000. And there's now close to 14 million people who are either unemployed or marginally attached, so-called underemployed. And this was a dismal number, and I think Mr. Trump will put that number to work.
And right now, interest rates, the Fed tried to lower interest rates by half a point, and the markets cooperated for about 2-3 weeks, and then boom, they go up higher than ever. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Does it mean that they can't sell the T-bills? Does it mean confidence one way or another, or incompetence one way or another?
Yeah, well, it has something to do with confidence. I agree with you, or a lack of confidence. Listen, the market, the bond market sold off 60, 65 basis points. Mortgage rates, a 30-year mortgage, Freddie Mac, has bounced back almost a full percent. It got as low as 6.25%, and now it's trading around 7.25%, which is a killer for the housing industry, which is already in recession. And one other point, the ISM manufacturing report, Institute of Supply Managers manufacturing report, it was terrible. You've been in a manufacturing recession now. The only thing that's rising is government. All right, government jobs went up 90,000, and government spending. I mean, look, as a share of GDP, we're running 7% deficits. It's unheard of in peacetime. So my point is the Fed has to be very careful here. I don't really think they can force feed the lower rates. What the Fed needs is an economic plan that says we're going to cut back on spending, reduce deficits, okay? Otherwise, the risk, and I think this is the risk in the market, that the Fed will be forced to buy all the bonds that the government is selling.
And we're back where we started from.
That's right. Don't monetize these bonds. And you're right. And the inflation rate is going to go back up. I think that's what you look at the price of gold. It's another indicator.
That's an indicator.
So you just can't force. You need fiscal leadership. And frankly, I think you need a new president to do it. That's what you have to do.
Larry, go ahead.
Here, the leading indicator, John, the best thing on the fiscal side is the emergence of Elon Musk as a Trump advisor. Now, he won't go into government, but he will be an advisor. He's got a lot of people working with him on this.
And by the way, breaking news, his mother just resigned from the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I know. She was here at Fox yesterday. I talked to her. By the way, she's a very classy woman. But I'm just saying the Elon Musk factor tells you that Mr. Trump is going to make good on his promises to get rid of agencies we don't need, to cut spending that's been obligated but not yet spent, and to trim that budget deficit way, way down. That's what you need. Musk is there working with Howard Lutnick and a whole lot of businessmen. I'm involved in this. I can't say anything more, but it is for real. And the Fed should wait for that, okay? Wait for that, and then they can gradually start taking rates down.
Larry Kudlow, I'll be listening to you on Saturday from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock. And you have the greatest show we have on ABC on Saturdays. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Much love.
And Rita, let's go to the hot news of the day.
It's the top news of the day, sponsored by Goya. Here's Rita Cosby.
And as we've been talking about here, John, and everybody on Katz and Cosby, the race for the White House reaches the finish line next Tuesday, 4 days away. After spending yesterday in the Southwest, both Vice President Harris and former President Trump will campaign in the Rust Belt today. And also, clocks will go back 1 hour this Sunday. Daylight saving time ends at 2 a.m. November 3rd. It starts again in March of next year. And that means an extra hour of sleep. By the way, only Hawaii and Arizona don't observe daylight saving time. And everybody, those are the big headlines. After the break, we're going to talk to John Fund about some questions of election irregularities that are happening in various states and a lot more. Stick with us.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we're back here on Katz and Cosby. Let's go right to John Fund, the great political guru. And John, I'm telling you, lots of questions about election integrity in a couple different states. What are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Well, the shenanigans are back. We see scattered ones, and of course, like an iceberg, 9/10 of it is probably below the surface. But in Pennsylvania, we have 3 different batches of voter registrations, which apparently are fraudulent, and they've been traced to a Democratic registration mill operating out of, believe it or not, Mesa, Arizona. And then we have obviously the problems in Bucks County where they tried to cut off the lines for early voting. A judge had to step in. We have a non-citizen in Michigan who was caught red-handed, a Chinese student. And sadly, because he had voted and the ballot had already gone through the tabulator, his vote will count. And then we have the usual incompetence and lack of effective election administration, which will confuse people on election night. And then, of course, Nevada, the Supreme Court, state Supreme Court there has said that mail-in ballots can be counted, even if they arrive 3 days after the election without any postmark.
Oh, wow. Ed Cox.
John, the key to election integrity is to have people on the spot right there. So before the vote's cast, to make sure every vote's an honest vote. How do you do that?
Well, you do three things. First of all, you challenge in court anything that looks fishy regarding the election administration or the election procedures. And I think the Trump people have done a very good job of that, especially in Pennsylvania. Secondly, you want to have people keep their eyes and ears open for anything that looks untoward. See it, stop it, say it. And lastly, we need as many poll workers as possible and for them to monitor the elections. They're the frontline troops. I think we need to recruit more every year because, of course, a lot retire. The average age of a poll worker is 65 to 70 years old.
Wow, big stuff. Well, please keep us posted. John Fund, thank you. Definitely let us know what is going on and where you see the hot spots. We always love having you, John, and this is such an important topic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now let's go to Allison Esposito. She is in a very big hot race running for the 18th Congressional District in New York. That's Orange County, Ulster County also as well, most of that. 18th Congressional District against Congressman Pat Ryan. And Allison, first off, I love your background. You have such an amazing background. Tell us a little bit about why people need to vote for you. You understand law and order firsthand.
Yes. Well, good evening. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I am running in the 18th district. It's Orange, it's Ulster, and it's Dutchess County. And I'm really running to bring common sense and integrity back to elected leadership in Washington. I was a New York City cop and commander for 25 years, and I loved being a cop. I loved protecting and serving the public. But the city, the state, and the country went upside down. Police were public enemy number one. There was an attack on energy. There's an attack on small businesses. We're overtaxed. We're overregulated. We're in a time right now where everything we know to be good, they're telling us is bad, and vice versa. So I walked away from my police force with a very heavy heart and a deep breath of air because I felt like I could be doing more. And I ran with Congressman Lee Zeldin as his lieutenant governor running mate against Kathy Hochul in 2022. And we campaigned all over the state, upstate, downstate, in the cities, out of state, out of cities. It didn't matter what you looked like, what God you prayed to, what your skin color was, or where you were from. Everyone was saying the same thing. Please help us. We're overtaxed. We can't afford to live here. My children can't afford to raise kids here. I can't afford to harvest the crop that I've planted. There's an attack on energy, and we can't survive. And I made a commitment to these people. And even though Lee and I came up just short, I had to figure out how to serve. And I live and grew up in Orange County. I built my home there 20 years ago as an adult. And I love the Hudson Valley area. And Pat Ryan is the wrong guy. He talks about common sense and middle of the road, but he votes along party lines. He's a rubber stamp. He's a progressive left activist. He's a Green New Deal guy. He calls weapons in the hands of cops weapons of war. He's voted against raising the SALT cap, and our New Yorkers are struggling.
Allison Esposito, too, explain why it's also so important when people are going out there and voting. I know that Speaker Johnson has spent a lot of time in New York, helpful because he understands sort of all roads, as Ed Cox knows too well, how important it is to keep the House. Explain why that's so important when people go out there.
So it's more important in the local elections and the district elections than even the presidential. Now, even though President Trump believes he can take New York, that is a really tough thing to do. I would love to see it happen, but it's a really tough thing to do. But if President Trump gets into office and we do not keep the majority of the House, they will start the shenanigans again, and they will start impeaching, and they will block him at every turn. The Biden administration was able to come in day one through 94 executive orders. They overturned border security. They overturned our energy independence. They overtaxed, overregulated. They caused record high or sky high inflation, 40-year high of 9. When it came into office, it was 1.4. The Biden-Harris administration has done nothing. And if we do not keep the House majority and get the Senate, we are not going to be able to turn this ship in the right direction. And they're just going to block President Trump on every turn, whether it's energy independence or whether it's losing our footing on the world stage, the wars that are erupting all over the world because of a weak administration. There's so much we have to do, but it's so important that everybody gets out and vote. We can win this as long as our New Yorkers realize that the road is through New York.
What is the first, what's in your district? What are your people worried about the most?
So it's economy. It's crime, law and order, public safety, and a secure southern border. That is what people are worried about. You know, my opponent is a wolf in sheep's clothing. And he talks about women's rights, but he boils women down to only one right. But he doesn't, because of his pro-criminal policies, he doesn't think a woman has a right to go running in the park without falling victim of a crime. He doesn't believe a woman has a right to play on the sports field or be in their locker room safely and privately without a male being in there. He doesn't believe that a woman should have the right to be able to send their kid to a party without fear of overdosing on fentanyl because of his lax southern border. He was a sanctuary city guy. He made Ulster County a sanctuary county, and our people are worried about not only the attack on energy and the prosperity that has left New Yorkers, but they're worried about our southern border, and they're worried about crime and public safety. Our kids are suffering because there are millions of people in here, and we're spending taxpayer dollars to clothe them, to feed them, to care for them.
It is extraordinary.
On the street.
Allison, real quick, what's the website, too, for people to find out more?
AllisonEsposito.com. Come out, volunteer, support, but everybody needs to get out and vote.
Absolutely. Allison Esposito, thank you for your great service. We wish you so much luck on Tuesday. Great to have you here. Thanks so much. And now I also understand, John, we have someone calling in, right, John? We have.
Yes.
And joining us now here on Katz and Cosby is Mike Sapercone. He is the Republican candidate for U.S. Senate against Kirsten Gillibrand in the big race in New York. And Mike, I know Speaker Mike Johnson has been spending a lot of time with you. Yours is a huge race. Talk about what's at stake, Mike Sapercone.
Well, there's so much. We need to win the House, Rita, and you know that, and we all know that. And that's what he's been doing. We were in Nassau County with Speaker Johnson on Wednesday night for Anthony D'Esposito. And yesterday we were up in Rockland County for Congressman Mike Lawler. And tonight we're going to be up in Greene County for Mark Marinaro. So the Speaker has been all over New York. He realizes how important New York State is to retain the House, the majority. And that's what he's fighting to do. And that's what we're all fighting to do. Listen, we want to make sure President Trump wins, so we have the executive branch. We certainly want to be the person to change the Senate, so we have the Senate back. And the Speaker's working so hard to make sure we get all our Congress people elected here in New York State. It's been terrific, Rita and John, over the last couple of nights. And, you know, I feel a lot of momentum, and the rallies have been great, and people are talking. There's something going on in this state.
Well, don't forget, especially in D'Esposito's district, that if Kamala Harris gets elected, or if we lose control of the House, you're going to have more migrants moving into his district.
Without a doubt. Coming right across the line from Queens. It's not even a thought. That's definitely going to happen. I mean, you already had them all up by the Creedmoor area, right on the border. They're all going to be coming here. But not just his district, John. All these districts up here. And, you know, we have spoken about it before. It's not just the city. It's all the counties up here. All 62 counties need to be concerned.
Yeah, it's very important. And you have in the fentanyl and the drugs. I mean, I don't think Kamala Harris, and I really believe this, is capable of stopping the border. And she didn't say she's going to stop it. And the fentanyl and drugs that are killing American kids are still going to be coming through.
And, you know, Mike, also explain how you are right now going up against Kirsten Gillibrand there in the Senate. How many of the Democrats, they just seem to be rubber stamping whatever Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are selling.
And that's been going on for the last 3.5 to 4 years. You know, we debated last week up in Albany, and she talked about how much the Republicans haven't done. And I said, you know, Senator, you had the majority. You had the White House. You had the majority in the Senate, and you still weren't able to get things passed. And you had the majority in the House for those first 2 years before the midterms, and you couldn't get anything done. So stop blaming the Republicans. Stop rubber stamping everything Biden and Harris do, and start working for the people here in the state of New York who elected you. And really no answer for that. And I kind of said to her, listen, I applauded her for her work with sexual assault, especially in the military. And I think she did a good job for that. But how can she, in clear conscience, not understand she's been the person, she's the person who started this, one of the people who started the crisis of letting over 20,000 convicted murderers and rapists into this country over the last several years.
Yeah, you're right. It's baffling.
It's wrong.
It is bad. Mike, before we let you go real quick, Mike, how can people find out and help you? Because it is crunch time.
Mike Sapricone for Senate.com. And we're down to the last 3-4 days. We got to get out there. There's a lot of stuff. Let me tell you, the momentum is great. We're ready. When you wake up on the morning of the 6th, Rita and John, you're going to have Mike Sapricone is going to be the person who turned the Senate right here in New York. And I'm going to be the senator for every single person in this state. I look forward to it.
Thank you so much. Good luck. Give Speaker Johnson regards, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
Good luck, Mike. Great to have you on, Mike. Thank you very much. And coming up, Kimberly Strassel talking about Mark Cuban attacking the women next to Trump. I can't wait to talk with her about that.
It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby. Joining us now is Kim Strassel, of course, with the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal. And Kim, we'll get into the women comments in a moment, but you saw the latest back and forth when President Trump just said that Liz Cheney's a war hawk. And now Kamala Harris is using it to say, oh, well, he's threatening Liz Cheney. I mean, come on.
Yes. I mean, if you look at this statement that he made and you look at it in context, it's very clear that the press took it, cut it, and pasted it to try to make it sound as though he was inciting some sort of violence against her. Anyone who watches the larger clip knows that he was having a discussion. His argument he was making is that too many politicians sit in Washington and don't understand the consequences of sending people off to war.
You know, and the one other thing, as we were just talking, actually, even in the break here, and we have Ed Cox and Governor Patterson, along with, of course, Judge Weinberg and John and me. Kim, you know, as we're talking, they're talking about, oh, he's inciting violence. Where are they pounding their fists? Why weren't they pounding their fists when President Trump had 2 assassination attempts against him? I mean, where was Kamala Harris then?
I know. I mean, they certainly mouthed the right things, but it was a one and done. We have not seen a sustained, I think, and unfortunately from the Democratic side, not all of them. By the way, I want to give credit. Like, for instance, this House task force that's looking at it, there has been some really great bipartisan cooperation. And I think those people have been really focused on this and working together to get answers. And in the Senate. But, you know, these figurehead Democrats, it would be really nice to hear them speaking more consistently and with more passion about the need to cool things down.
Yeah, absolutely. Judge Weinberg.
Kim, you had a great column in the Wall Street Journal today, and you talk about the contempt that the Democrats have waged in this campaign, calling people garbage and deplorables, and somehow they're morally superior and intellectually superior to anybody who would vote for Trump. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, and the thing that's been really striking to me is, look, we're used to this, right? I mean, think about Barack Obama clinging to your guns and your religion. Hillary Clinton, Trump supporters are deplorable. In the last 4 years, every list of ist words you can think of, if you're on the right, you're sexist, racist, nationalist, insurrectionist. But I think one thing that's interesting is what they're doing now is trying to use it as a voter, kind of almost a voter threat tool, meaning you will have these pejoratives attached to you if you don't vote for our person. You know, Michelle Obama out there suggesting that the only way men can prove that they take women's health seriously is if they vote for Kamala Harris, or Barack Obama telling black men that, the only reason they wouldn't vote for her is because they don't like the idea of having a woman as president, suggesting there's racism there. And then obviously we have this new ad out voiced by Julia Roberts suggesting every woman out there is dumb and weak. And follows orders from their husbands when they go to the voting booth.
Yeah, that's just like, that sounds like me and you, Kim, right? That we would be very docile, right?
No, definitely. The funny thing is I was thinking about this. My husband and I were laughing last night, like all the conservative women I knew, if they were told how to vote by their husband, they'd be reaching for sharp objects. So, I mean,
yes.
I just...
I mean, that's incredible. What about Mark Cuban's comment, too? I mean, the fact that he actually lumped females who work to Trump as stupid, weak. I mean, what a way to slam anybody who supports Trump. It's disgraceful.
Well, the thing that was most remarkable about that he didn't even really get caught out on is that he was saying this in reference to the fact that Donald Trump has not asked Nikki Haley to campaign with him. Up until recently, Donald Trump was frequently in the company of Nikki Haley. So obviously he spends time with strong, intelligent women by Mark Cuban's own description. But yes, the suggestion, I mean, to look at the array of people around Donald Trump. And by the way, women who held very powerful positions in his previous administration and who advise him now and in his campaign, that's just it's such a demeaning comment.
Yeah, it is. Ed Cox.
Yeah, Kim, but these insults are really their closing argument. That's Harris's problem, because they don't have any real issues other than maybe adopting some of Trump's issues. So they have to resort to now when Trump says something, he's making a point, but he has his closing argument. I want every American to be able to realize the American dream. And he introduced that in the Madison Square Garden.
Yeah,
as his closing argument.
Can I make an actually it maybe sounds like a circular point here, but I would argue that one of the reasons they have no better closing argument is because they do this all the time, and it protects them, meaning that they attest to being morally superior and intellectually superior to anyone on the right, and the press circles the wagons around them and allows them to get away with it, to live in this bubble where they really believe that's true, where they think it's just good enough. They're like, look, I found a couple of Nobel laureates and they said my economy is really great. And so they don't have to confront their own mistakes and thereby perhaps change policy and actually provide an agenda or pitch an agenda that might resonate with some Americans. So it is the press inability and refusal to actually cover them like real people and to believe in this nonsense that they have all the answers is one reason why they don't have any better closing argument other than I'm better than everyone else and therefore you should vote for me.
Cam, last question, John Katzmatidis. What's his differences with the former ambassador?
I'm sorry?
With
Nikki Haley?
Nikki Haley. Oh, Nikki Haley. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, Trump's differences?
Yes. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, well, look, I think he doesn't like the fact, obviously, that she challenged him in the primary. And I get that, okay? He doesn't sort of take those things well. Now, look, obviously he has accepted her as a surrogate. She's decided the importance of endorsing him. She's out there campaigning as well. This was part of a campaign event that she was doing for Dave McCormick to win a Senate seat. So there are relations there. The fact that he hasn't had her up on stage, we don't even necessarily know whose decision that has been, by the way, too. But one thing we do know about Donald Trump is that, he does get very grumpy with people, but then he also tends to get over it usually at some point.
Okay,
yeah, absolutely.
Donald Trump. That's right.
That is Kim. Thank you. It's great to have you. Keep fighting for the women, Kim.
Keep fighting.
Thank you,
Okay,
Kim.
what do we all stand for?
Truth, justice, and the American way.
God, we need your help this week.
And get out and vote.